Alright, so welcome back to part 3 of our dragon rescue tutorial. Part 2 we left off and we were right here. So we had a main character, we had a boss, we had a goal, we had health, and as soon as our score got to a certain level, we advanced to the next room, which we don't have a next room. So now we're going to add some more stuff. First thing that we're going to put in here is we don't have any start screens or win screens, so we're going to do that. You notice we preloaded a win screen that is a very simple win screen that just says you won, right? And then a title screen as well, which again, very simple title screen that just has the title and then says press space to start. If we want to create these different screens, we're going to actually have to create rooms. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to create a bunch of rooms. And then later we're going to create different levels. Okay, so let's start here by creating a title screen. So we're going to create a room here. Let's make, let's call this room title. And this would be pretty simple because all we're doing is going to grab the background that already exists, and as in the title right here, and we're going to say OK. The only thing that we would want to add to this room is maybe a controller that can just wait for the spacebar event. So we're going to do that as well. We're going to create usually, if you're doing it this method, you can basically make a controller for every room that you do. So let's create an object. That object is going to be obj title controller. And this is going to be placed in the title screen. And the only thing that we want to be having this guy kind of watch out for is the space press event. So we're going to hit spacebar, or the event when we click on spacebar, and simply we're going to move on to the next room. So we can go to our rooms, which is in main 1, and we can select this one right here, which is go to the next room. For now, that's it. We don't need to do anything else. So pretty simple room there. We're going to say OK. Now, your room listing here is important. When you start your game, it will start in the first room. So what you want to make sure is that you have your title screen and make sure it's above, your first level here. All right, so we have that, and then let's go ahead and create the win screen, just so we have a little bit more closure to our program. So let's create a room, and let's call this RM room, and let's just say win screen, and we will add the background that already exists, which is win, and we're going to say OK. And we can probably in the win screen, let's go ahead and make a controller for the win screen. So create an object. We're going to call it obj win screen controller. We don't need a sprite here. I guess the only thing that I might want to do is maybe if they press on R, then I can just restart the game, right? So if they won, I can just simply add an event for a keyboard, or sorry, I'm going to do key press, and I'm going to do they press R, then I can restart the game, which is right here. Then we can say OK on that. Now, if that was the case, I probably need to update my win screen text here. Probably need to go ahead and edit this background and say press R to restart, or to play again, press R. So we can do that later. Now we also have to add our objects. Always important here. A lot of your errors are coming from things aren't going to the next level or things aren't working is because we haven't added those controllers or invisible objects to our rooms. So I'm going to go to my title room. I'm going to make sure that my title room, and we go to objects here, and we're going to make sure that I select the title controller and put that up. I usually put it in the top right. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to go to my windscreen room as well. Make sure that windscreen controller is selected, and I'm going to add that too. Alright, so now let's go ahead and test that out just to make sure things are working. It looks like our... So you notice here, this has been a problem for some people, is the dimensions of the room and the dimensions of the background are not the same. And you want consistency here between your rooms, and we don't have it right now. So we still have the title screen, but the background image is cut off because the room is a different size than the background. So this should still work. Let's test it, but then we're going to have to fix that. So if I hit space, I do go into my room, and I think I am winning at 150 points or something like that. No, I'm not. Oh, I am. After 200, it does go to the windscreen, and if I click on R, it'll go back to the title screen, and I can hit space. So we do have that going for us. Now, let's go back and fix some of these dimensional issues. And so the problem here is that our backgrounds are created at a resolution or a dimension of 1024 by 768. Those are the pixels of the width and the height. And that was the intention for this game, to be played at a larger screen. And if you've been noticing, when we were playing, the room size has been smaller than that. Almost a little uncomfortably small. And so some of you might have changed that already. But what we need to do is actually make sure that our dimensions are matching up with how big we want the game to be. So if our intention was to be 1024 by 768 like these backgrounds, if we want the game to be as big as that, we need to go back into our room. So let's go to the title, and you can set the dimension of the room as well. If we go to settings, you can see the width and the height here are only at 640 by 480, which is kind of like a, like a scratch game. It's kind of small. We can do better than that. And so I'm going to change this to 1024. You can see that this is going to open up by 768, and that makes my game bigger. And I'm going to say OK on that. I'm going to do the same thing to the cave. I'm going to go to settings and go to 1024 and 768. Now when I do that, you can see this little thing on the side here. So, of course, since we were assuming 640 by 480, then we might want to rearrange our objects in this cave. So you can use the zoom bars on the top thing here. You can kind of zoom out and see your whole screen. Of course, if you want to adjust your screen settings and make it, a different size, you could do that. 1024 768 is much larger. So I'm going to make my main character maybe be a little bit out from that and put this guy maybe back here. Okay, and you can adjust as needed. I'm going to say OK on that, and I'm going to go to the windscreen and change those settings to also 1024 by 768. We're going to say OK, and then let's play this and make sure it looks good. Now it depends on your screen size as well. So on my screen, this kind of fits pretty nicely with everything. And if I was on a really small screen or a small monitor, then maybe the screen size is too big. It shouldn't be. But now we have a lot more space, and I can play the game as before. Okay. Now, next thing that we want to do here, so now that we have the screens, we went back and fixed some of the screens. We have a beginning, middle, and end. Let's go back to our monster, our boss, I guess our first boss. And if we go in here, notice the behavior of the boss. If we go in the step function, remember again, the step function or the step event is basically like your Scratch infinite loop. It's just looping over and over and over and over and over again. Every step of the game, you can sort of think of it as a game loop. Every step, and this happens like 30 times per second, this is being run. And so the way that we had the boss behaving is that there's a 1 in 25 chance. So if there's one step per second, it would kind of roll the die, and if it was like, you know, if it was a 1 in 25 chance, if that hit, if that was true, then we created these little monsters that we were gonna kill. We haven't let out any of the babies that we were gonna put in there as well. So I'm gonna add to this. We haven't put this in here. We should have babies that we are gonna collect, and we're gonna rescue our little babies here. So let's add that behavior in here as well, because we didn't finish that. So if we go to our, forgot where all that stuff is. It's right here under control. It's kind of like our control statements or if statements. We're going to roll the die again, or basically have another if statement, right? We're going to say if. And let's say that this is going to be a chance in a 1 out of 50 chance. Again, think about every second being there about 30 rolls, because there's 30 steps, you know, per second. So I'm going to say, and this is just a test, I'm going to say 1 of every 50. I'm going to create one of these babies that I have to collect. So with any if statement, with any test statement here, I would highly suggest that you put in a start and an end block, and you put your statements in between those. Okay, it just makes the code more readable, and if you have multiple statements, then you are ensuring that they're going to be run. There's been a lot of little mistakes with people not doing that. So up here, we created an instance of a monster. Now we're going to create an instance with main 1. We're going to go create an instance of a baby. Oh, and we haven't created that yet. So look at that. We're going to have to start creating more. So I'm going to cancel this. And right now it's going to stay as undefined. But we have to create an object for the baby. So if you look at our baby over here, this is the little baby that we're going to be creating. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's create another object, and this object is going to be obj, and we're just going to say baby. And we're going to select the sprite that is the baby sprite. And let's think about the events that we want. So on creation, so when this baby object is created, we're going to make that. And we're going to have this thing move. In this case, it's just in one dimension. We're just going to have it move to the left. So when the baby is kind of released from, you know, the boss, the baby's going to try to make it to the other side. And you, the main character, has to try to collect it and just make sure that you don't hurt it as well. So we're going to have this. We're going to have it move to the left. For now, I'm going to say 8. And you can always adjust that later. And then we have to make some other things like collisions. We have to define what happens when it collides with, first of all, the dragon, the main character, the mom, and also a fireball, which we don't want to happen. And then also what happens when it gets outside the room. So let's do add event, and let's make a collision for the dragon. So what happens when the baby makes it to the dragon? That's a good thing. in this case, we're going to add to the score. We're going to say, so right now we have a score that's increasing after we kind of kill those monsters, and we're just going to take the score and we're going to increase it by a certain amount. So let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to increase the score, set score, and let's say that we add 20 to our score. Now, if we're going to add 20 to our score, remember we have to make this relative because we want to add to the existing score. We don't actually want to set it to 2020. I'm going to say OK on that. And then we should also destroy the instance. So we should go to main 1, and we're going to hit destroy instance just so that it goes away and it doesn't keep triggering. So we're going to get rid of the baby instance on the screen. It goes away. Then we're going to set our score to 20, and that should be good. And then what happens? Let's make another collision. So let's make a collision for the fireball, right? So that would be not a good thing if you hit. Oops, I didn't do that right. Delete that. Collision with the fireball. If we hit the fireball, we're going to, we're going to destroy the instances. So first of all, let's get rid of. We're going to get rid of the baby. We're going to destroy the instance. We're going to get rid of itself. We're also going to destroy the other, right? That means that the fireball will also disappear once it makes contact with that. So we're going to destroy the other object, which will be the fireball. I think we also have a sound in here. Yeah, we do. We have this baby sound. So we're going to play the baby sound. And so where's the baby sound? We're going to do this, and we'll play the sound baby. And this is a bad thing if this happens, right? So we're going to drop our score like by a lot. Let's say that if we go to our score again here, let's set the score. Set the score. In this case, we'll make it relative, and let's make it negative. So if we get one of our babies, that's good. If we hit one of our babies, let's say minus like 30. Again, these are just random numbers I'm coming up with. We definitely have to change around all these numbers once we tested our game. So we're going to set that to negative 30. Now, also, we forgot about what if the baby gets outside of the room, right? So let's add an event and go to other and go to outside room. If it gets to the outside of the room, again, which is not a good thing because that means we didn't, rescue that baby. Let's go ahead and we're going to delete the instance. So we're going to get rid of that just like we always do, so it doesn't keep existing in the game. And then again, we're going to drop our score, right? So let's go back to score and let's set our score relative and make it again go down a certain amount, right? So if we hit the baby with the fireball, we took off like 30. We're like, that's bad. If we miss it, why don't we just say minus 20? Because maybe that's not as bad as shooting it with a fireball. So let's say okay, and that should be it for the baby. Let's keep it there for now, and we're gonna just click on this. Or say OK. Now if you go back to the boss, remember we were at the boss behavior here, and we were talking about this if statement, and if we had a 1 in 50 chance, and if that was true, we were going to create an instance of the baby, right? So we were going to say, if we go back in here, we're going to select which object we want to create, and that is now the baby. So we're going to say OK. again, where we want the baby to be, we want to make this relative. This is going to be relative to, again, 0, 0 location. That is relative to the boss. Wherever the center of the boss is, that location, the baby will go right there. And we can offset that based upon or relative to the boss, but let's just leave it there for now. And I think that will add a new layer to our game now. So now we have things that we have to shoot, things that we have to collect. We haven't really fixed any of the numbers yet. Those numbers could be way off, but we can, that's just something sort of we adjust as we test our game out and have people play it. All right, so let's play that and make sure that things are going as we expect. So start screen, hit space. So there's a baby. Ooh. You can see my score is increasing, and I already won. Wow, so that was really easy. So I'd want to adjust that. And there are a lot of babies coming out of here. I probably would, I'm going to adjust this, and let's let some of the babies go outside of the screen and see. I can see the score is going down, and if I shoot one of the babies, which is not very nice, my score is dropping down a ton. I'm at negative 150, so that part is working. I want to collect those, and so I think at least the programming portion here is working as expected. Okay, and then what I think would happen right now, we just have our score going down if those. Okay, I'm trying to remember all the different scores that we've already added in there. Okay, so small adjustments here. Again, I probably would make this like 1 out of 100, right? So that there's not so many babies coming out at a time. Kind of make it more of a rare event. But this is something that you can cater to your program, and as you test, you're going to refine those things more and more. Remember that you want a sweet spot when you create your game, is you don't want to make it just incredibly easy where people get bored, and you don't want to make it impossible where people are frustrated and they can't progress at all in your game. So you want to keep testing that, watching people play it as well, and fixing that up. Another thing that you want to do in your game, or if you have the time to, is progress the level of difficulty, right? So if we have the time, it would be nice if we have sort of a simple kind of get it like level 1, the user kind of gets used to it and then advances to another level, or the difficulty increases, and so the game gets harder and harder, and that makes the game more fun as well. So we're going to attempt that. So if we go, we're going to say okay to all these little things here. Okay. And right now, if you look at our objects, we have, this is basically our level 1, objects. If we're creating multiple levels, okay, what's going to happen here? And let's go ahead and do this. Let's start it, and then you'll see kind of the dilemma that we might have. So let's say we want to create a new level. Our first level is Cave 1. And actually, if you create a lot of levels, then you probably want to start naming these just like, it's level 1, right? Now I'm going to create another level, and I'm just going to make it level 2. And what you can do is you can duplicate a room. You have to be careful with this though. So I'm going to do it this way just to show you, but it also is, you definitely got to make sure that when you're duplicating these rooms, you're also duplicating the objects that go inside it. So I'm going to show this to you. So you can, if I wanted to make a new level, I could say, right click, let's duplicate this room. And I just duplicated a room. And then I can name it something else like room level 2. Now, here's the problem with doing a second level is if we want our objects to behave differently, then we actually want different objects here. It's like, so for right now, and also see that there's the control. This is the controller for room 1 up here. Now we don't want that. Probably we want our separate controller. So what I'm going to do is delete all these objects in the room because I don't want them. I'm going to delete this controller for sure. I can right click and delete. We don't have to necessarily delete all the objects if that object is going to behave the same way. So here's what I mean. Let's say in level 2 that the boss gets harder, right? So I'm actually going to make a new boss. It's going to be the same sprite, but its behavior is going to be harder. It's going to spit out more things and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this boss. I'm going to delete it. I'll keep the main character for now, but realize that if I want to significantly change some sort of attributes or behavior to the main character, I might have to create another object. Okay, so we're going to say okay on this, right? I want to add a boss here, but I want the boss to be harder. I don't want it to be the same boss. Okay, so the one easy way to do this is to create a new boss. And so I'm going to do that. You can actually duplicate objects as well, which that's super nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on boss and I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to call this obj boss 2 because it's the second boss and it's going to be different behaviors than the first boss. So, all right, so I have this. The only thing that I'm going to change in the behavior is the step function right here, where, right? So this is where I can alter and like turn up the difficulty or turn it down. So let's say that right now it's 1 out of 25 where a monster is coming out. Let's say, we're just going to make this a little lower. Let's say that there's an easier chance of a monster coming out. So let's maybe say this is like 20 or let's say 15. And then a baby's coming out like 1 out of 100. So this one I'll maybe make bigger, like 150. And so that's one way to increase the level of difficulty of our game. All right, so I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to go to level 2 now. Remember that I just have this, and now I want to add a boss 2. There's a boss 2, and it's pretty much the same thing as boss 1. So I'm going to add that. I basically have all the same behaviors, except that it's shooting out more monsters, and there's a smaller chance that you're going to get a baby. So let's just test this. Okay, so if I go here, I need to get to a certain score. Ooh, that's not good. So I gotta get to my score, then it's gonna go to the next level. Hopefully. Oh, I think it's at the next level now. And now you can see that this boss is shooting out more. I can definitely tell it's harder. Okay, again, not testing this at all. I would. Right, and so you can see that it is working. Now, again, this game is great because my number scheme and just how I have things set up like level 1, level 2, I would definitely want to adjust those numbers, and that's going to be kind of the art of testing the game and switching around your constraints. Okay, but the concept here is working, that we got to a new level, and the new level boss is harder, right? Now another thing is, and we're gonna stop it right there for part 3, and we're gonna finish this last remaining stuff in part 4. So I'm going to end it right here, and we'll continue this in part 4.